What is going on, YouTube? This is your boy Jordan JC back again on the Chicago Bears Breeze. And unfortunately, this is where we're at. If you didn't watch the game, the Chicago Bears got demolished, not just lost, got demolished by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the final score is 29-9, and we're here to talk about it. And more importantly, we're here to talk about in more detail. Did matter Eberflus just seal his fate? There are a lot of things that really looked horrible, bad, as far as play calling, as far as the performance, as far as the defensive effort, as far as situational calls, situational defense, the message that he had at halftime, and then also the quarterback being hurt at the last second. But we're about to get into all of that. But again, if you saw, it just was not a good performance. This was a must-win game for the Chicago Bears, and they did not come to play. They did not look like they were prepared. And I think that's an indication on the coach and the staff, and also the energy that this team is playing for their coach. At this point, it looks like they're not playing for him. But let's just get into the actual stats of the game first. Cardinals, who are now 5-4. Again, as I mentioned, they scored 29 points. They had 350 total yards of offense, 137 in the air, and 213 on the ground. Really killed us in the run game, often and early. This is a game where James Conner just kind of had his way, especially in the beginning. I mean, you're talking about a guy who, let's see here, he averaged 5.9 yards per rush, 18 carries, 107 yards. Very good game on the ground for James Conner. A big, aggressive, yards after contact type of back, can really pack a punch, hard to bring down after the first initial contact, and that's what you saw all game. You saw the Cardinals go to him early and often, especially because Kyler Murray didn't necessarily have a great game. He was only 13 for 24, 154 yards, no thrown touchdowns, didn't have interceptions either, but I mean, it was pretty much a mid-off when it came to the quarterbacks today. But I mean, where they won the game and where they impacted the game the most was the run game. Of course, you also had DeMercado, who had that long run right before the Bears kind of had that momentum going into the half, and that killed it right away. He was 4 for 59 yards. A lot of that came in that run in that second quarter touchdown right before the half with a few seconds to go. And so he had a touchdown. Trey Benson had a touchdown. He had 8 carries for 37 yards, a 4.6 average. And then Trey McBride also ran the ball in on a goal line run as well, 1 for 2 yards and a touchdown. And so a running game was the theme here. The running game really dominated. And of course, going into this game throughout the season, we talked about that being a weakness of the Bears. For whatever reason, they are not stopping the run at all. They're getting gashed time and time again, especially by some really talented running backs. And now that you're playing the likes of a James Conner and a Trey Benson and a DeMercado, really good running backs, talented running backs, speedy running backs in their own right, I mean, they just continue to take advantage of you. And you saw over and over again that this linebacking core, this defense, the defensive line, the middle of that defensive line, just kept getting taken advantage of. There was no real stopping in the gaps. There was no discipline in the gaps, controlling the gaps. I mean, you had guys just kind of getting ran past all day. It was bad. The tackling was bad. I mean, the run game for the Cardinals was just top tier. When you're getting over 200 yards for an entire game, that means you're dominating. And so that's exactly what the Cardinals had to do in order to dominate this game. They kept feeding the ball to these guys, and they did what they had to do to win. First game over 21 points in a long time for this defense. And I'll be completely honest with you. From a defensive standpoint, we have to have a discussion because I honestly think that the defense looked as if they gave up at a certain point. And that is very, very surprising and shocking to say. But if you had your pair of eyes, if you're a Bears fan or even if you're a Cardinals fan, if you watch the game, you could kind of tell that the Bears defense gave up. Now, it's not to say that there wasn't certain players out there. We know that, not having Montez Sweat out there has a huge impact on that defensive line and the pressure that they get on the quarterback. But, I mean, the quarterback did get pressure. Kyler Murray was pressured during this game. I believe the Bears had 3 sacks for the entire game. 3 sacks allowed for the entire game, but there was pressure that was being put on Kyler Murray. However, with his mobility, he was able to get out of pressure when he needed to. And again, he just relied and leaned on his running game. The Bears can't say that much on that end because during the game, they only totaled 69 rushing yards for the entire game. DeAndre Swift was stopped early and often. Roshan Johnson wasn't necessarily used as much. He wasn't really highlighted into this game. He only had 3 carries for 13 yards. I'm not exactly sure why they didn't go to him a little bit more often, especially in those plays where they were really backed up. The 1 yard play, rather when they started on the 1 yard line, and it was a safety call. I'm not exactly sure why you didn't go to Roshan Johnson in those situations where you know he can kind of move the pile a little bit forward versus a DeAndre Swift, who you know his weakness is he isn't necessarily that strong, aggressive run type. He's the guy who can kind of get through the seams and be elusive. That's his game. Being a screen running back, getting those yards and going straight up the field, like that's his game. You should have used Roshan in those instances. And so again, it goes back to the coaching. It goes back to the play calling, the situational play calling in many different instances was not good. And we talked about it on the Windy City Breeze Daily Show, the live party, watch party after the game was over. I felt that, and even Pat said this specifically, that Shane Waldron didn't necessarily have a bad game. I didn't necessarily feel like there were a lot of things that I could go back to and say that was just a bad play call. It was just the execution. And of course, time and time again, when you're going up against teams, even it doesn't even matter where they're ranked to me at this point. I believe all teams are starting to get tape on the Bears and they're saying, hey, no matter how bad our defense may look in the rankings overall, which Arizona was 27th overall total defense, 26th in the run game, 27th in the pass game, giving up. I mean, you 26th rather in the pass game. You had opportunities to really take advantage of this team, and you didn't. And the thing that I think all teams are starting to key in on is that, hey, this offensive line is probably the worst in the league. All we need to do is bring more bodies towards the quarterback. This offensive line is going to implode. And that's exactly what they did. The first couple of drives, they looked manageable. They looked good. Caleb looked as if he had a clean pocket. You saw Larry Borum do a little bit better at the left tackle position, and then he got a penalty called on him. And then things just kind of fell apart from there. There was no stability on the line. Dante Stills was having a day. I mean, you saw pressure from Budda Baker constantly doing the safety blitz. Like he was being used all over the place. It was just massacre. It was a massacre city for Caleb Williams. He had no time. He kept trying to run around and try to figure out ways to get the ball down the field. He kept moving backwards. Like it was just putrid. It was a very, very bad display by the offensive line. And that's what we've come to know. We know that is the biggest issue with this team is no matter how good the roster looks on paper, no matter how many great receivers we may have in DJ Moore and Keenan and Rome, no matter if we have a tight end who, by the way, is non-existent apparently and hasn't showed himself since Jacksonville because now they only want to use him as a blocker. I understand that. But then there are times where you still need to go to all of your weapons. Cole Kmet was not used at all. 0 receptions, 0 targets, 0 yards. That is unacceptable. That is completely unacceptable, especially when you're not getting your run game going. You need to figure out ways to get every single weapon that you have involved at the very least. And you did not do that. That is the only problem I had with Shane Waldron. He did not utilize his top tight end today. I believe Gerald Everett had, again, more catches than Cole Kmet. You shouldn't be reverting backwards to how you call games in the first couple of weeks. Got to use Cole Kmet going forward. But again, this is not the blame Shane Waldron day. This is blame Matt Eberflus day. Because I honestly think you saw a team that mentally quit on him. There was a tweet, I should say, by Courtney Cronin mentioning that, before the game even started, there was a discussion being talked about accountability and how the team wants to see the leaders and the coaches take accountability, specifically Matt Eberflus, if they're the ones that are also going to take accountability, that there should not be any finger pointing. And so could there be now a ignoring or a lack of effort now from your defense, from your team as a whole, because now you're leaning on a coach who is starting to really show how incompetent he is. And my goodness, the message that you brought out of the halftime when you were interviewed and you said, what is it that you told your team and how you all can get back in this game? He said, well, hey, I told him, hey, this is the score. We just gotta stick together. That's what you told your team at halftime. This is the score. We just got to stick together. There's no doubt the team has turned their back on Matt Eberflus. If I heard that, if I was a person in that locker room, personally, I would probably not speak out of respect just for the process. But in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is it. This ain't it. Coach has got to go. That's the inspiration that you gave your team. You're telling them that, hey, you know what? We just got to continue to play together. We just got to play hard. Offense, defense, special teams got to just continue to tighten up. You got to tighten up. Those calls, the run at the end of the first half. That was on me. But then at the same time, when it comes to the normal plays, we got to tighten up on our run pressure. So not only did you kind of like try to shift blame when you took accountability, but now you're telling your team something that is very cliche. Not a real message, not inspirational at all, not motivational. And you wonder why your players are continuing to speak out and talk about, well, we didn't really agree with this play call, or maybe we could have used the timeout at the end of the game just to kind of keep everybody's, morale high, or just to make sure that everybody's on the same page as to their assignment. When your players are speaking out, the guys that are getting paid are speaking out and saying, hey, we probably should have went a different route. When your veteran players on your team are creating a leadership council to have to come to the coaches, to have to come to the leaders of this team and say, we don't like how this is going. We don't like how this is being called. We don't like this game plan. Let's switch it up. Let's do this. Let's do that. It's almost as if they're saying, hey, we probably could do a better job than you. Get out of the way. And so I'm not saying that this is a complete just probably, a fire sale or anything of that nature. But at the same time, when it comes to Matt Eberflus, I personally have gotten tired of him. I said it before. It will have to take something astronomical for Matt Eberflus to keep his job this year. Anything less than making the Super Bowl miraculously, Matt Eberflus needs to get out of here. And I already said it. I think that his seat is as hot as it can be now. He needs to be gone. And I know that the Chicago Bears, they don't usually do this. Their track record throughout and the entire history is that they don't get rid of anybody during the season. They don't do firings of head coaches in the middle of the season. Well, you know why you probably need to really consider doing that? Couple of reasons. One, he has probably lost the locker room. Two, if you're trying to salvage this season, there needs to be somebody else new or fresh that has that voice so that the players can actually respect it. He has lost the ear of the leaders of this team. Maybe not every single player, but the ones that are the most impactful on this team, the Kevin Byards, the Montez Sweats, the Edwards, the Edmonds, even the Caleb Williamses, who is a captain of this team, the DJ Moores, the Keenan Allens. You probably have lost their confidence in you because of the things that you say and the fact that you also have not taken an accountability when it was time to. It is time for Matt Eberflus, in my opinion, to be fired immediately. And then the cream, the cream of the crop, or whatever they say, the icing on the cake that really just takes this over the top is that Caleb Williams was still in the game with 2 minutes to go. No chance of getting back in this game. No chance of coming back. 29-9 was already the score. And you sat there and you allowed your quarterback to get hurt. Not only once, twice. Caleb Williams was limping the play before he went down and held his leg and the time ran out. Because they not only rolled on top of him, they did a gator roll. You ever seen an alligator try to eat his prey and roll over it? It's because they want to snap the limbs. You almost got your franchise quarterback hurt even more severely than what it probably was. They said he's fine. But I mean, if you're talking about just coaching malpractice, Matt Eberflus, you are in the spotlight. He should have not been in the game. That also is situational awareness. You have none of it. The IQ of being an overall head coach is past you. And so for that matter, you should be fired immediately. The Bears organization, when I talk about changing the culture, when I talk about doing things differently from how you've run this mom and pop organization, that's part of it. Getting rid of the problem immediately. Cutting it off at the head immediately, not allowing it to fester, not allowing that toxin to continue to seep throughout the entire season. We got 8 more games left, 9 more games left. Do you think that it's beneficial for this team that's already turning its back on its head coach? For the coach to still be here just because you're saying we don't do business like that, we'll wait to the end of the season to manage this. You're losing your team now. It's time to start over now. It's time to get a new voice in there now. And for that matter, that means it's time to let him go now. So we'll see what happens. I would not be surprised if they again say we'll manage this at the end of the season. It's very clear that this was the last straw in many people's eyes, especially in my eyes when it comes to Matt Eberflus and the coaching. But it's a matter of timing. If you're going to try and save this season, and you can make the excuse that, in any other division, we'd be right there. Yeah, of course. If we were in the Arizona Cardinals division, we'd be in second place right now. We'd be fighting for first place before this game started. They were 4-4, we were 4-3. But that's not the case. You're in the best division in football. And so that matters. When you're trying to fight for your playoff life, when you're trying to get wins, when you're trying to make sure that this team's morale is still up to par, when you're trying not to get your quarterback killed, who's now had, I believe, 29 sacks on the season, some not even accounted for. That is utterly ridiculous. You will get him killed eventually. And now that he's hobbling, there's no telling what the future will hold if you do not make good decisions. And that is why you should fire Matt Eberflus. Let me get you guys' thoughts on this horrible game, obviously, coming off of an emotional loss. I mean, this was even worse than the Washington game, in my opinion, because not only did you not come in prepared, not only did you not look like you executed properly, there were a few times Caleb did not play well, did not throw accurately as usual down the field. But again, I'm pinpointing Matt Eberflus. I'm pinpointing the fact that I feel like he lost the defense. I've never seen the defense play this open and loose and just it was uncharacteristic. And now for the first time in many games, you've allowed over 21 points. And I feel like that was on purpose. I feel like a statement was made to say, hey, this is where we stand now with you, coach. It's time to make a change. So again, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think that this is too soon? Do you think that they need to do something that they never done before and let him go now? Should we fire Matt Eberflus? Should other people get fired? Who should be the pinpoint of this loss? Who do you actually put this loss on? How did you feel about the performance of Caleb Williams and his maturation as a quarterback? Do you think that he'll continue to get better? This is just a one-off, or these is just rookie mistakes? But again, really the impact, the focal point is Matt Eberflus. What do you all think they need to do with Matt Eberflus? I'll be down there definitely with you all in the comment section. And as always, if you like this video, show some class. Comment, like, and subscribe. Share this video with others. See you guys on the next Bears Breeze.